Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. I decided to wear a very happy, fun shirt for this reaction to complement the black cup of coffee that is my soul, that I feel like will be when we watch this episode, because it's called Hellish Hell. And we've taken like a 2-week break from My Hero Academia. Well, it's been more like a 1-week break, but I had watched episode 13 pretty soon as it came out, and then it posted, and then we've had that whole week plus the week off. So it's felt like 2 weeks since we've watched the last episode of My Hero Academia. And I should have known they'd take that break around Christmas or New Year's. I even think some people commented about it, but you always get hopeful. You're like, maybe they'll just roll through it, but no. So yeah, we're at the halfway point of the season. The first season was great. As a manga reader for My Hero Academia, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very consistent with what I hoped was going to happen with the manga being adapted into the anime. I know there's a few little changes, but I think overall, especially in comparison to previous seasons, I was pretty pleased with it. So we're getting a new OP today. New OP, new Edie, fun times. Some people in the Discord were telling me that, one person said the OP was very spoilery, and I was like, well, I read the manga, so for this series, spoilers are fine. I feel like I can't be spoiled because I read the manga, but I've heard that it's one of the better OPs, so I'm pretty excited. I'm trying not to get hyped, trying not to get myself hyped up, but I'm pretty excited for it. So yeah, I've had a great day of doing a lot of stuff, and I felt really peppy, and I'm like, am I going to change my shirt? Nah, we might need the pep compared to what's going to happen in this episode, but we'll see, right? We shall see. So with that being said, I'm pretty excited, y'all, to dive into this and see what we get. So in any case, we are going to start My Hero Academia episode 14, and we are going to do so here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Well, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? I'll be honest, I knew the midnight death was coming, but I was not looking forward to it. And hearing the voice actors, I was getting a little emotional. I was like, not enough to make me cry, but I imagine some reactors that were like not seeing this coming are like, oh shit, she actually died. Oh, because it really blindsided me reading the manga. Like, reading the manga, you expect there to be casualties, but then you see Compress get wheeled away, and you're like, well, he just lost half his body. How is he still alive? And you think, well, Compress got out of there. We should be fine. And then they cut to Midnight Majestic, and they're like, no, they're dead. And it's like, oh, and it just kind of sinks in. You're like, oh, holy cow. Like, yeah, there were some losses on both sides for sure, but the heroes, the villains, League of Villains lost twice, and then we lose Midnight, we lose Majestic, and we lose a bunch of other villains, or a bunch of other heroes. So yeah, that part was, ooh, and hearing the voice actor for Kirishima's voice actor getting really emotional, I was like, oh, it was so sad. I was just sitting there, I wanted to listen to it and process it, but I was like, oh, this is just so hard. But a very odd episode. I like this episode for what it's, the OP and ED. We'll talk about in the spoiler corner. But I really do like that this episode had a hard job, because the opening chapter that has to deal with the hero commission bit with Redestro, that's a chapter in the manga. And I think I thought about this a few weeks ago. I was like, did they adapt that chapter yet? I thought about that because it is right around the aftermath, and they kind of use it to segue into the next arc. And so, like, no, yeah. It also uses it to establish there's chaos throughout Japan and Hero Society, because not only do you have all of the destruction and panic caused by Gigantomachia, which we'll talk about, but you also have the seeds of distrust that have been spread by Dabi, which we'll talk about, and now this opening scene where Redestro, before the hospital was invaded, Redestro basically orchestrated the death of the lead commissioner of the Hero Safety Commission. So she's dead. I can't recall, honestly, this isn't a spoiler, I don't remember if the guy that looks like Kusakabe from Daokusei, if he takes her place or not. I don't remember. We'll have to see in the manga or in the anime what ends up happening. But yeah, basically it just ends up being this big brawl, and the president of the safety commission is killed. So she's out. So now the safety commission is in chaos because they've lost their leader, and you have all this other stuff just piling up. As much as the villains seemingly lost because they were driven away, I'm sure All For One is like, no, this is a big victory for us because now Hero Society, it's plunged into chaos and we don't know what we're going to do. The big thing to take away from that opening scene is the fact that they did not include that the kids were fighting in the battle. They conveniently left that out, right? Again, showing that there is some gray area in that whole Hero Commission and what's happening with it, because you have the situation where the villains are trying to point out that, yeah, this hero society you've built up, it's not all sunshine and roses like Deku thought in season 1. And that little part there, I always thought from the manga, it always hit me that, yeah, there is some truth to that, because the Hero Commission very much used all the UA kids for the battle. They're still using them to help the evacuation. They're using these UA kids in the battle to help the heroes, and they're doing a damn good job. But the commission doesn't want to include that in their report because that would look bad that they had to rely on child soldiers to get the job done. So it's like, ugh. So there is a little bit of problem there. And I remember when the chapters came out in the manga, a lot of people were talking in the Discord about how, yeah, and we are hearing this from Deku's point of view, however long in the future. So he's looking back and thinking, yeah, they struck our names from the records, but we were there. We remembered. How could you forget? And they show everything in this episode that would lead you to know, like, yeah, you're not forgetting something like that anytime soon. It's just curious that they don't want any record of the children helping because that would make them look bad. Even though we know as the audience that Ochako and others want to help, they want to be there and do it, but society may think otherwise if they saw that in the records. So it's pretty fascinating. It's interesting to see those little tiny minute details, right? They showed Mirko breaking into the hospital. We see a little preview of Johnny's death. I did want to point out the Horikoshi did release, he did release at the start of New Year, because we're now in the year of the rabbit in the Chinese zodiac, did release this image. I love Mirko's kimono with the moon. It's beautiful. She looks beautiful, but it shows her, and then it shows all the other characters in Mirko's hero outfit. Ochako looks like she's having the time of her life. She's all about it. Kirishima, balls out everywhere. He's all about it. Bakugo missed the memo, but he's in like a little kimono for New Year's Day, so it's kind of cute. Jiro looks like she's kind of embarrassed, like she doesn't want to be in that outfit. Bless her. My favorites, though, are Deku and Shoto. Because Deku, his little burp bubble, if you can't read it if it's Japanese, but it says that he's got to where he can pose and his balls won't come out. He won't have a wardrobe malfunction, which is hilarious. And then Shoto is just like, if I move, there will be a wardrobe malfunction, so I'm not moving. Kirishima don't care. Kirishima's like, this is fine. But I love that Shoto's like, I can't move in this. I taught a class once with a student from the Netherlands, and he was like 7 foot tall. He played basketball at our school. And I told them for Halloween they could dress up in a costume for extra credit. And he showed up in a monkey outfit, but the problem was he was 7 foot tall and the costume was too short. So he like cut off the legs of it, and he was sitting there and he was like, if I sit, it rips. I was like, ah! So that's every time I see Shoto like that, that's all I can think of. But yeah, great times. So a lot of the first part of this episode is recap, and I can instantly understand why someone watching would be like, this is just recap. But there are some good chunks in it, and to be fair, the manga kind of does a little bed of a recap after the battle to just sum up all the madness that's been happening. A few notes though. God, Edgeshot terrifies me. Edgeshot as a hero terrifies me because I don't like needles. So the idea that he like pierces into your skin and into your lungs and stuff, I'm like, no, it's so creepy. I don't like Edshot. I'm like, it's a very creepy power, very creepy indeed. And then I like Gettin getting cornered by the cement. Bless him and Cementos, and them both saying, Gettin saying that Cementos is just a dog of the government. And Cementos being like, well, I'm fine being a dog of the government if it means that we're in peace. So again, you have these characters with these differing ideologies up against one another. What do we do with that? So it's rather interesting. But yeah, they struck the names from the file specifically against the fight against Shigaraki, or at least that was all that was written in the report about me, Kacchan, and Todoroki. Mm-hmm. And then we go back to the thing where he was saying, against One for All. And we have the brother, who's absolutely gorgeous, of course, saying that Shigaraki looked like he needed to be rescued. And Deku's all about those rescuing things, so what do we do with that? Mm-hmm. So yeah, so we basically cover all the things about what's happened with people. We get the battle between them. My dog's gonna go crazy. And then, yeah, we get the evacuation. The evacuation deal, and it is pretty traumatic. I'm not gonna lie, it is in the manga it looks pretty devastating, right? In the manga it looks really bad. In the anime it gets even worse because it's very, very sad and it's very, very real. It's probably one of the more realistic scenes in the anime and manga is this whole aftermath of Gigantomachia where people are bleeding and crushed and they don't know what to do and they're desperate and they feel hopeless and there's so many of them. That's the problem. Like whenever you have a natural disaster, like this is obviously a fictional thing created by Gigantomachia, but it's very reminiscent of a real natural disaster. And people are displaced and terrified and they don't know what to do. And their bodies like go into fight or flight and they can't think critically because they're so overwhelmed. It's very easy for things to just get out of hand. And what do you do? Right? And so I feel like it's a really real portrayal of the desperation and just panic that can ensue in situations like this. And the little thing with the little boy and little girl, like their voice actors, I was like, stop. I was like, no. I was really quite upset with that. I was like, it was hard to watch. I was just sitting there like, oh my God. And then Ochako, of course, Ochako and Frappy, Ochako tries to make it all bubbly and fun the best way she can with her personality. But even she's like Izuku. She is just totally absorbed in the idea of saving people and saving as many people as she can. And Ochako's whole thing has been about being a support. That she's like, no matter what happens, she's like, I want to save as many people as I can. And she's never tried to be like a frontline fighter. She just wants to be there to do the most in the situation. I like we got that little Shiba Inu that's up there in the frame as well. But we see like other heroes helping. We see Koda using the birds to like fly up and see where people are and to rescue them. It's great. They deal with the fact they don't have enough blood to give to people. They need somebody with a blood quirk. That'd be really fun. They need that right now. And then that's when we get, this is so iconic from the manga, but the guy that's saying it's hopeless, where he's just overwhelmed and burnt out and he gives up. And I love that she's just like, her hair's down, like it's probably greasy and everything, like from all the dust and the dirt. And the one hero's like, I can't do it anymore. I need a different line of work. I can't be a hero. And that's kind of what's interesting is the last several seasons where it showed them like taking the exam and being in those situations. The sad thing is we played that off as a joke seasons ago, being like, oh, come on, Bakugo, help that old elderly couple. Ha ha ha. And isn't this funny how they can't, do an evacuation properly? And now Horikoshi's like, oh no, this is real now. And people are dying. And here's the scenario. And people are getting burnt out. And so it's taking something that comes from a place of more youthful innocence and giving it a big slap of reality and saying, nah, this is how it's really like. And it's not like that. And people do get burnt out. And Ochako is seeing that firsthand. And I love that shot of her where she just stares at him while he says it's hopeless. And she's like, what do we do? Maybe I should do something else. And then we cut immediately to that shot of midnight, and I can't, like, seeing Sugar Rush looking sad. And when he said she was on the radio earlier, like she was talking to us, it's like, I was really holding it back. I was like, girl, you know what happens. You know what happens. And I was like, don't get emotional, but how can you not? Especially the animation on him. Like, they tried, I think, to tone it down as much as they could. And they're like, you could hear her voice, couldn't you? And then, of course, Mina and Kirishima are just, like, sobbing and wanting her to come back. And then they don't show us her body. They just show us the hand. And Mina grabbing the hand. Oh, my God. Oh, in the manga, it's so, yep. That's all you see. That's all you have to see. It's just her there. And then the snake girl says that Majestic is dead, too. Which was their teacher. So... oof! It's not good. It's not good at all. Them just saying, like, all the heroes dying. They make the note that Shigaraki, the spark that revived him, was not enough to revive a normal person. And it makes sense now when you look back. You're like, Exilus wasn't really affected by the shock either. So it wasn't like an electrocution. It was Shigaraki was awakened by his dreams from that state, right? And then... they're like, what are we going to do? And so you have, on the one hand, I mean, all for one, you have the destruction caused by Gigantomachia that's put the Hero Society in disarray. You have the Safety Commission president who's gone now, who's been thrown into disarray. And now you have Dabi, who spread the distrust about Endeavor, and everybody's walking the streets being like, well, do you think it's true? Well, do you think we should believe in him? Well, I always knew he had an ulterior motive, even when he was number 2. Like, just the seeds of distrust have been sown for your number 1 hero. There's that. And then on top of it, you have just, everything's in chaos, and you've got a bunch of heroes dead. Who's going to pick up the slack? And I do love the little kindergarten boys. They're like, we've got 5 wees and the other on our side. I love they called Shoto 5 wees. He's got the 5 wee-wees. I'm like, oh my God, I love that they call him that. I'm like, that's the most ridiculous name. And then the operatic music kicks in. And of course it's operatic. And there you have All for One doing his best Aizen-sama and Chair-sama impersonation as he's strapped to the chair, being like, yes, I will have my way. I will be rescued. I'm like, oh God. The parallels between him and Aizen from Bleach are very, very apparent. I've not watched the new season of Bleach yet, but I've read the manga, know what happens. Yes. Horikoshi's taking some good inspiration there. But then you have the Nomu, like, watching over Shigaraki, and Dabi's, like, knelt before him, and Shigaraki just looks kind of, or Spinner and Dabi. And Dabi's knelt before him, and Spinner's just kind of like, what do we do? This isn't Shigaraki. It's All for One. It's All for One. He's like, you tireless Nomus. I want you to free my real body from Tartarus. Ah! So yeah. Fun times. Fun times indeed. Yes. I have spoilery things to talk about, but I do think this was a hard episode to start. You kind of have a hard row to hoe because, one, you have to come off of a break, so everybody's anticipating the episode like immediately starting a new thing. But the problem is that you left before you finished the aftermath, so they've got to deal with the aftermath. And then I know why they wanted to end this episode where they did, because it's a nice little cliffhanger, like, oh, we're going to free my original body, which is where a manga chapter ended. So that makes sense. But you didn't have enough content to really do that and end on that note without recapping some. So I'm not a recap person at all. I think they handled it. It was a lot better than I anticipated. Originally, when I thought, okay, we're doing a recap, it was handled better. They mixed in some new stuff in there where it wasn't so bad. But next week will be all new, so we'll see, right? But, oh my gosh, there's so much. I do want to talk in spoiler corner about things, but, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. If you're not sticking around for the spoiler corner, and I will definitely be back next week with episode 15 of My Hero Academia. So yeah. Spoilers. That OP. That OP is so good. I want to go back and watch it again. want to go back and watch it again. I've got Redestro talking about his dad, la 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 la. I want to get back to this. I'm curious how dark we going to get, Bones, because it gets pretty dark and edgy. We're in the sad Deku arc where Deku's really upset. So, like, what we going to do? And so, yeah, we have him, like, in the rain, looking sad. It's all glum. Endeavor's there, too. We get Hawks' baby! We're going to get Hawks' backstory with the Endeavor doll. And his little wings are growing back. Okay. Anthony, on Patreon, said that this was a spoilery OP. You, sir, are quite correct. I didn't know. At first, I think Paco was arguing, well, it's not that spoilery. No, it's pretty spoilery. If you were anime only, it's pretty spoilery. But the problem is, Nagant is like a major spoiler. Lady Nagant is like, it's like putting her in the OP is a major spoiler. But the shot of Hawks, he has little wings coming out of his back. Like, the chair makes me look like I have wings now, but the wings are coming out of his back. When we were reading the manga, we didn't know if Hawk's wings would grow back. There was a month-long discussion over whether Hawk's wings were growing back or whether he was going to stay flightless for the rest of this series. It was a big old ordeal. I don't know if y'all were reading the manga, but I remember week to week, there'd be giant discussions in the threads being like, is he growing his wings back? Is he not growing his wings back? Well, I don't know. Some people were in the camp where they didn't want him to grow his wings back. Some were in the camp they did want him to grow his wings back. It was a big old ordeal, and they just spoil it for us in the OP by showing us that he has his wings growing back. I'm like, But then, yeah, and then we see Deku leaving All Might. I'm like, well, we're gonna get the bento box in the rain! No! We're gonna get the bento box in the rain. I'm not ready for All Might to be sad. No. But yeah, no, that OP, amazing, but it is super, super spoilery. Like, the moment they show Lady Nagant, I'm like, everybody else in the rain, not really spoilery, but she's sitting there with her gun. They don't know who she is. Who she be? Very spoilery. And then Deku looking back and saying Ochako, and she reaching out her hand. That, I'm like, is that where they're going to end the arc? I feel like it is. We show him like Spider-Man zipping around against Lady Nagant. Very spoilery. And then, oh my God, the guy crawling out of, I'm guessing it's All for One, I'm assuming, but crawling out of the stuff and it looks like an atomic bomb is what it looks like. And I'm sure it's intentional, but then him coming out and screaming, oh, yeah. And then Deku with all of them. The animation style looks like it's from the guy that designed the episode of Endeavor versus the Nomu. It's kind of like a weird, blocky sort of situation. It's very odd. I don't know how else to describe it. And then Deku with the other. Deku, my favorite shot of this entire OP, honestly, as much as I love Lady Nagant and her colors look amazing, my favorite shot is the grim Deku mask, and then it rips off to reveal like a very innocent childlike Deku, and then Shigaraki melts away to reveal like the kid version of him that lands at Deku's feet, and Deku reaches down to grab his hand. I'm so ready for that moment. That moment's gonna be great. But then we see everybody here in like the break of day. Yep. Okay. Yep. And the thing about it is, I don't think Aoyama is present in that shot. I don't think he is. Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Invisible Girl's there, but I don't think Aoyama's there. Indeed. So yeah, this episode had it had a hard uphill battle because it really there wasn't enough content to end where they wanted it to end without doing a recap, right? But I am glad that we do get like little snips of that Shigaraki wanted to be rescued. Like, we're going to go back to that. That was honestly one of my favorite scenes in this arc, is Deku becoming a kid and wanting to save Shigaraki. It's great. But yeah, Compress, I can't believe he survived this. It's like, really? Are we sure? They said he was captured. We're assuming he survives it. And then, God, Midnight's death. Oof. Yeah, the stuff that they just they show the death and destruction in the manga, but seeing it animated and like drawn out like this, it's pretty sad and terrifying, honestly. And then, God, I will say, the animation and the darkness of Midnight's death with all of them there, it was animated really, really well. The shadows, everything, and is super sad. If they can do the darkness like that, then I think showing like the sunset, then I think we'll be fine with Dark Deku. But yeah, I'm really hoping next episode we get Shoto and Endeavor and Ray and all of them having the Todoroki family coming together next episode. I'm hoping that's the case. It might be episode 16. I don't know. But Lady Nagant. I'm so excited to get Lady Nagant. And Hawks' backstory. There's lots of things left in this season that I am looking forward to seeing animated. But God, seeing poor Spinner being like, oh, what the hell, as like the Nomus are all like surrounding Shigaraki talking with All For One talking through him. It's great. Man, but this was a good episode. I really enjoyed this. The ED is really good. The ED is great because it shows like UA all empty, and we know that eventually Deku's going to go back into UA. They're going to make it like the traveling fortress. But I like the idea that this season, the ED is like going through everything leading up from seasons 1 to now, because this is going to be the part of the season, the part of the show that really tests. It's building up to the final arc starting, right? This is the final arc starting. And it's Deku going off on his own, trying to be a hero, and then his friends bringing him back. So there's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to, but this was a nice little bounce back into the series, especially with the OP and the ED, and then we'll just let Midnight's death be the highlight. Yikes. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen next, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, eh? So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. Not as much to talk about this week because of the recap, but I'm very looking forward to Lady Nagant. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I will be back next week with episode 15 of My Hero Academia.